Hadestown is set to be a modern American classic. The narrative is evocative, the vocals are phenomenal, and it weaves together the past and present in a way that resonates with audiences on a global scale. Hadestown is not about a poor boy working on a song or a love driven apart by gods. It's about how hard it is to make do in a world that wants you to go without. Hadestown explores our relationship with the environment, power structures, and the idea of freedom in its entirety. In this video essay, we're going to explore elements of the narrative through a historical lens and consider how they relate to modern issues. Ultimately, Hadestown reflects back at us the struggles associated with the working man and plays with one tantalizing concept. Is it possible to disassemble the machine we live in? Hadestown is predicated upon a simple idea. A desperate Eurydice signs her life away to a Titan for stability, and Orpheus does everything he can to bring her home. He fails. He always does. But examining everything that stands between him and Eurydice creates an interesting opportunity to examine our own relationship with the systems that we live in and how we submit to them ourselves. And there is no better symbol for dominance and exploitation than a train. Our narrative begins with a train. I'd argue the train is the most important symbol present within Hadestown. Sure, the carnation is iconic and so evocative, but if we're going to discuss Hadestown, we need to discuss the role that trains played in the evolution of society as a whole and the role that they play within the narrative. In Hadestown, the presence of trains evokes industrial imagery. As listeners and watchers, we understand that Hadestown exists at a time of great change. At the same time, our cast occupies a time and space that feels isolated and expansive. Ultimately, a train's purpose is to connect communities across vast distances, and the presence of trains, alongside the absence of cars, implies several interesting things about the world our story is set in. Trains need fuel. The first trains were powered by steam engines, and steam engines used coal, wood, or oil to create the energy that led to motion. In order for a train to operate, you need to take something from nature repeatedly, rapidly, to navigate from region to region. It's also important to consider the impact of a train on the environment it exists in. What happens if you live near a train? What if they want to build through your home? What impact does it have on animals, nature, and people, or industry? And who benefits? Within Hadestown, Anais uses trains as the vehicle by which Persephone comes and goes. It's honestly an incredibly clever evolution of the classic Hades and Persephone myth. In the original myth, Demeter, goddess of harvest and agriculture, despaired over Persephone's absence, and this brought famine to the world. Only the negotiation of Persephone returning for half the year brought the world back into balance, creating the seasons. The absence of Demeter in the narrative is interesting and definitely puts more weight on the respective roles of Hades and Persephone. Within Hadestown, Persephone brings spring, and while that is accurate to the myth, it does eliminate Demeter's presence and impact, limiting her to a single line within the narrative.
But like my mom always said, brother, when you're down, you're down. When you're up, you're up. If you had 6 feet underground, you're living it up on top.
If anything, Demeter's absence emphasizes the dichotomy between Persephone and Hades, and that makes you wonder, what are these two representing? Of course, they're a couple in a power struggle, but the heavy emphasis on Persephone bringing spring and Hades stifling her and preventing communities from having stability evokes the idea of nature and industrialization failing to achieve balance. Okay. So now that I've laid out the roles and associations I have with major elements of the narrative, I want to provide a little bit of a lesson on how those elements are linked to U.S. history. So, returning to the significance of trains, it's important to recognize the transformational impact of their existence. So, this is coming from an American perspective, okay? I just want to preface that. I am American. This is coming from an American perspective. I know y'all have trains in other places, but this is me, an American, talking about trains in America in reference to an American pop culture thing, all right? So, trains linked together communities, facilitated the profitability of farmers, and created lots of jobs, but they also displaced Native Americans, disrupted ecosystems, and created insatiable demand for labor with complete disregard for the safety or well-being of those people. There is so much more to unpack, but I want to point out that even back then, there was a raging debate about how specific groups, specifically in reference to Chinese and Black Americans, were quote-unquote stealing jobs, even though they took the most undesirable roles with the worst pay. Why we build the wall becomes very interesting when you listen to it thinking about U.S. labor dynamics, but I can't even go there. I can't even go there yet. That's going to have to be like a completely different video. But yeah, let me know if you want to hear about my thoughts on that specific song down the line. So historically, the train industry and steel industries are interlinked and reciprocal. You need steel for trains, and you need trains to move iron and ore to get steel. Trains transport goods so fast that a profit margin can go from piss poor to profitable overnight. People and goods could move across the country faster than ever before. At the same time, the two industries destroyed and degraded the environment. Forests were felled, soil erosion disrupted ecosystems, wild ecosystems shrank, and pollution from industry became a very normalized issue that still has not been resolved. Native Americans were forced off their lands, and ecosystems in their entirety were altered because trains opened up new opportunities for extracting resources in new places. My personal belief is that cars and trains normalized the separation of people from their resources, and now we're all deeply reliant on a system that could collapse at any point in time, similar to how Demeter's absence in the original myth led to widespread death and devastation, because there was no nature and therefore nothing for humans to work with. But anyway, going back to Hadestown. Hadestown is special because it takes a familiar story and elevates it by infusing it with struggles that we as a society have been navigating for a while now. It's getting harder to put food on the table. The people who have work are miserable. The people who do earn, that money doesn't stretch as far as it should. At the same time, there are people out there who are single-handedly orchestrating the movement of all goods and services, and they're not inclined to really care in a meaningful way. What I'm trying to say is that Americans grow up being taught that if they work hard, the money will follow. When we grow up, we realize there are a lot more forces that make it really challenging to do anything but survive. We are taught that we need a vehicle, but once you get a vehicle, you have to live with a certain amount of pressure weighing on you because the average American is not purchasing an entire vehicle all at once. They are financing it. And the question becomes, why do we need a vehicle? Well, people say it's because your car is equivalent to independence, but I personally think that getting a car forces you into a state of reliance. You have to bend to keep the vehicle. You have to bend to maintain it. You have to give and give and give to maintain this thing that in a superior environment you would not need. I got my degree without going into debt. I got my degree without purchasing a vehicle. It was really challenging, and there are a lot of small things that worked in my favor. Not everyone can do what I did, but I did do it, and I graduated without $1 of debt. That is freedom. The ability to opt out of something is freedom. The world that we live in is designed to take away our ability to opt out. We need truckers the same way that Persephone needs to ride in on her train, because we need groceries the way that Eurydice needs spring. Hades is not inclined to give us Persephone year-round, or visit the service to be with her. He wants Persephone on his terms, because his system relies on you never having enough. Because if you have enough, you don't need to ride to Hadestown. There is no world where you have your needs met and he gets to exploit you. So why is Hadestown so popular? Orpheus represents a normal guy trying to navigate a world that has no regard for him. A world that is ugly, needlessly complicated, and rife with scarcity. Some of it is manufactured. Some of it is due to the destruction of natural resources. A world that is inefficient on purpose. For profit, for cheap labor, to keep people reliant.
Saw that wheel up in the sky. Heard the big bell tolling. A lot of souls have gotta die to keep the